Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So welcome to this evening School of Bhakti event entitled, let me see, Varnashram. There we go. An evening with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. So, Maharaj is just on his way. He'll be here in a couple of minutes. My name is Krishna Kirtan Das, your host this evening, just because everyone else is away, so there was no one else to speak. I wanted to ask a couple of questions, if I may. So please raise your hands if you're under 5 years old. I'm talking about the body here. Anyone? There's one over there. Anyone? Keep your hands up if you're under 10. Okay. Anyone under 20? Okay. Anyone under 30? Anyone under 40s? 50s? Who's in their 60s? Who is in their 70s? You should be up here speaking. So, now another question. You can shout out some answers, okay? What is the average lifespan of an adult here in the UK for males? Someone said 37, then I'm 1 year dead. I'm in bonus years. What else? 85? Come on, Masis, you can shout. Shout the answers. 70, 80, 90. The Indian range, you know, quite a big range here. What about for females? Ladies is higher. What is the age in the UK that most people are starting work? 16, 18, 20? 20? Some 16, never. Privileged children of Gujarati parents. What is the average age in the UK of retirement? So the young lot here are saying 40. 60, 70. Some of the masses are saying 80. This is very strong ladies. So it was 65 for a long time. I just checked online, it's 68. So how old are you? You're 18. How long until you're 68? 50 years. So in the last few years, they increased from the age of 65 to 68 for the state pension. If that pattern carries on, you'll be very, very old by the time you reach to get your state pension. So Srila Prabhupada once had a conversation with Bhakti Charu Swami, and I'll just read an excerpt of that conversation. He said, "What you have done is inconceivable. No one has ever achieved what you have. You should not think that there is anything left that you must do. Now you should just relax, Srila Prabhupada." To which Srila Prabhupada replied to His Holiness, "What I have done is only 50%. The other 50% is to establish Varnashram Dharma, the Vedic organization of society into 4 social and 4 spiritual orders." So Srila Prabhupada, our Acharya, has done 50% of the work of Sri Chaitanya, which is to spread Krishna consciousness. But the other 50% is, how do we all live life whilst practicing bhakti? And there's 4 orders, and there's 4 ashrams. So what are the 4 orders? I'm going to pick on people here. So we're going to do a little interactive test. Prabhu, tell me one of the stages of life. In English, it can be. Brahmachari, Mataji. See, behind every great man is a great woman. Okay. Kshatriya, okay. And Grihastha. And what's the last one? One more stage of life.
Sannyas.
Sannyas. So we have Brahmachari. Let's have a student stand up. You can stand up, Prabhu. This is a Brahmachari. Give a spin. He's a brahmachari, he's got saffron on. Then we have Pastor, we can have your shoulder stand up. He is standing up, I promise you. Then we have a sannyasi, which soon he will come, which means somebody in the renounced life. They've given up their duties to this world. They don't have like any belongings to this world, and their responsibility is just to share wisdom with the world. But there's one stage which is the link between Grihastha ashram, which is 99% of our movement of householders. Raise your hand if you have a house or like a house. Is vanaprastha. So my spiritual master, His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Swami, he was once at I'll go on the stage because some of you probably can't see me. Okay, so he once went to a social convention in Europe where they were talking about the social makeup of our modern society. And the devotees were talking about brahmacharis, they were talking about the grihastha ashram, they were talking about the sannyas ashram, and they were saying, and the vanaprastha ashram is that grey bit in between that isn't very well defined. So today, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami will try to enlighten us and clarify this very confusing stage of retirement. There's two aspects of retirement. One is, well, actually, let me get the answers from you. What does retire mean to you in one sentence? I'm going to come around with the mic, because some of you look like retired during this talk, and already some of you are lounging and looking like you're going to sleep. Probably, what does retirement mean for you?
It means cessation of material working life.
Cessation or stopping your work in this world. Mataji.
Simple life.
A simple life.
No active income earning, maybe passive.
Okay, no active income. Your wife's getting nervous. Okay.
Change of occupation.
Change of occupation. One of my favorite.
Go. Pensioners.
One more. Anyone else got any reflection or realization on what is retirement?
Not having to wake up to worry about going to work.
Yes. Bring on vanaprastha. What is retirement?
Freedom to do what you really like to do.
Freedom to do whatever you like to do. Srila Prabhupada once said, once you finish your 16 rounds, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. So as long as we do our 16 rounds, Shriman. I know you didn't have your hand up.
Increasing one's devotional service.
Okay, nice. Increasing one's devotional service, and there was one more hand. Yes, sir.
To seek for vanaprastha. Vanaprastha, retirement, to go to jungle in previous times, to go back over there.
So we should go to the jungle.
No, not nowadays.
Uh-huh.
You can join, you leave all the material things
Yes.
here and families and go somewhere. Join the Dscourse.
Okay, join the ISKCON. Very nice. It's interesting, sometimes when we have retreats, or when we go on holidays, I just went to Tenerife, and we actually pay to go to such facilities where you get to just leave everything behind and just have a simple experience. But then we force ourselves to have very complicated experiences here, normal life. So now I'd like to welcome His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. If we could all have a round of applause as he comes in. So His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami is one of the most earliest disciples of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, a student of his from New York. He's famous for his contribution in Srila Prabhupada's book editing and publications, known as the BBT, and served as a trustee for decades. He's been a kind well-wisher to many of us through the decades, travels the world tirelessly, and has so much wisdom. His forte is his ability to very quickly and insightfully answer questions. So please, I ask you to listen attentively with the intention to think of questions, because let us not leave the room different today. We don't have a big feast, so it's not going to be in our bellies, but let us transform the mind and heart. Think, we are a certain age and we are going into retirement. But some of us are already at the age of retirement, and some of us are already at the stage of sannyas. But what is it that is going to take us to that next step of detachment on one level, and on another side, attachment to Krishna? Maharaj, just for your information, we just introduced a bit about vanaprastha and the conversation between Srila Prabhupada and Bhakti Swami about the 50% and 50% is left. Maharaj also has produced a lovely book called Vanity Karma, where he discusses the parallels and differences between Krishna consciousness and the different faiths. So it's a very interesting book, which you're able to come and get signed at the end. In terms of timing, we'll go on till 6:30, and Maharaj will address us shortly, and then he will take your questions. There's tea at the back there, and the toilets are through the end there. If you have any questions, please go to the ladies at the back table there. I'm not sure if that's the actual area, but you can try them there. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening. So let us please raise our hands and welcome Maharaj with 3 loud Haribols. Haribol! Haribol! Haribol!
Om Gana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunlitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Roop. No, this doesn't move, huh? It's stuck. Okay. Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Shabdadantikam. I've spoken on this topic of vanaprastha life to a vanaprastha group here at the manor. Did any of you attend that? No. Okay, you're all fresh. Good. Well, as you know, we have 4 ashrams: brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyas. This Varnashram system is meant to define what happens in our life. Varnashram dharma, what is our duty at different times of life? As students, we have certain duties. As family people, we have certain duties. And then when we get old, we have a different set of duties. It's not that when I'm 83, they expect me to be bringing in a regular income to support the family. I have now another set of duties. So the Varnashram dharma informs me what my duties are and guides me in such a way that I'm doing the suitable thing at the suitable time. Youth is the time for education. The mind is like a sponge. You can absorb so much. So that's the time for education. Then a little older, that's the time for marriage and children and families and so on. And then there's a time when we don't want to work anymore, when those duties that we were looking forward to or that were a natural part of our life are now burdensome, or what's the word? Irrelevant. They no longer make sense for who I am now. So the Varnashram system is also biologically natural. There's certain, the body is changing. Kaumaram, Jovanam, Jara, from childhood to youth to old age, we're accepting new bodies. And the old bodies don't want to do what the young bodies wanted to do. It's no longer appropriate, no longer. So in one sense, our bodies tell us, they give us some clues. Now it's time for a different set of engagements. The Varnashram, this system of ashrams is not Krishna consciousness per se. It's not that this is the essence of our life, to be a sannyasi or a brahmachari or a grihastha. But this Varnashram is meant to be supportive of Krishna consciousness. It's a better deal than just the ordinary, what should we say, civil expectations, what the society around us offers. It's meant explicitly to nourish spiritual advancement, Krishna consciousness. Okay, with that in mind, now let me look. I'm writing a book, by the way, called The Varnashram Adventure. And its manuscript is in progress. And I'm looking to see where, okay. The vanaprastha ashram is, as you know, the ashram of retirement. We heard about going off to the jungle. Vana means the forest. Pancha shordham vanam vrajet. Srila Prabhupada often quoted that at the age of 50 one should go to the forest. That's what the kings used to do, what the sages were already doing. They were off to the forest at 50. So we don't expect to be heading off to the forest, but Prabhupada said Vrindavan is a very suitable forest to go to, or there are other places to go, and I can say more about that. But the idea is that at a certain time, we should close out our family life. And Brajate is imperative. Imperative means one must. Not, it's a good idea, one may, but one must do this, one should do this. This is enjoined. Because we may not automatically do it. We may think, the inertia keeps us where we are. We don't change. Therefore, the Shastra is telling us, no, it's time to move on. Manu Samhita tells us, when we see our hair becoming gray, when we see our skin becoming wrinkled, or when we see the children of our children, it's time for the vanaprastha ashram. Apart from that, Prabhupada usually just offered the number 50. By 50 years of age, one should accept the vanaprastha ashram. The vanaprastha ashram is meant for detachment. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Vairagya, Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga. Devotional service supported by knowledge and detachment. The number one attachment for most people is family life. Family life is not, what shall we say, by definition transcendental. It can be given transcendental value by being engaged in the service of Krishna, but it's an arrangement that we accept because of this body. Man wants to have a wife, woman wants to have a husband, in terms of our bodily existence. And so we marry, unless we stay brahmachari. We marry, and then there's an attachment that grows. Yes? The ladies, you're attached to your husbands, or you really don't care about them very much? Maybe we ask that question and you can submit the answer on pieces of paper. But generally we find the wives have a natural attachment for their husbands, and the husbands are attached to the wives. And the wives and husbands are attached to their children. And along with that, we're attached to our homes. We've invested seriously in our homes, and we have a place to go back to every night, and we know where everything is, and everything's reasonably comfortable and secure. So we're attached to our homes. If I suddenly came and said, "I'm sorry, you have to leave today," oh, where do I have to go? You don't worry about that, but this home we're giving away to somebody else. We'd all go into shock. We have attachment for wife, children, husband, home, and enjoyment, comfort. Our homes are fitted out with usually really good kitchens. Those who are Indian, your kitchens are all above British standard, and so on. Because and in connection with that, the family life means that there's a certain that we're on a path with a certain amount of material enjoyment attached to it, material comfort, material enjoyment, and we're attached to that. We don't want to give that up. We work to maintain that. I mean, you think about it, how much fun is it to work? But why are we working? For the privilege of having a family, a home, a car, internet connection, and whatever else. So, but that's all going to be taken away. It's all going to be taken away. Death will come, and we'll be removed from our homes, taken away. Or old age comes, and we may be taken away. This is not really helpful. We may be taken away to some place where they can take care of me. I think the child is going to be disturbing. she's not of retirement age, so she's really the wrong audience. Sorry about that. And Prahlad Maharaj points out that these family attachments, home attachments, reinforce the basic illusion of material existence that I'm this body. I'm not this body, we all know. I'm a spiritual living being. But in connection, but I have a connection with my family members, my home, and my society, and so on, which is in terms of the bodily identity. And I have to give up this body and ideally not come back and accept another body. I have to come to my spiritual identity as an eternal living being, as a part of Krishna. And to the extent that I'm keeping attachment to this world, which means to the body, to those who are in relationship to me in terms of the body, the things that I'm connected with in terms of the body, to the extent that I'm holding on to those, I'm holding on to this material world. And I'm, what should we say? I'm holding on to my ticket to the next body. So the human life is meant for getting free from all of this, getting free from the bodily concept of life and going back to Godhead. So in householder life we have kirtan, we have bhagavatam, we have the association of devotees, we have the service of the deity, we have all of the activities of devotional service that spiritualize our existence in householder life, or which we can say is our real engagement, and householder life is supports, spiritual householder life supports us in that, in our devotional service. But at a certain point we're meant for greater detachment, because the ultimate separation is coming. And the signs are there, the gray hair is there, or the wrinkled skin, or just the number 50. These are all indications that we're reaching that stage. It's not householder life forever, or life in this body forever. So therefore the vanaprastha life is the next stage. And I'm calling my book The Vanaprastha Adventure because it's fun. It's a relief. It's a new, what should we say, a new opportunity, a new life, a new breath of fresh air, that I don't have to do the same thing that I've had to do for the last 25 or 30 years. Householders are always asking me, how do I balance my material and spiritual, my spiritual life and my material responsibilities? Maharaj, how can we find time to chant and to read along with our other responsibilities and so on? And it's always an issue for householders. We have jobs, we have children in school, we have so many responsibilities, and we want to chant, we want to read, we want all of these spiritual activities. Where's the time? So at a certain stage, we leave behind so many of our material responsibilities, and then the time becomes available. Now I have time to read, to chant, to take part in spiritual gatherings and spiritual activities. And I can switch my focus from material development, my career, my my earning, and so on, to my real business in life, to increase my attachment to Krishna. Detachment is not the ultimate goal. The real goal is attachment to Krishna. So this vanaprastha ashram is to be accepted, but in ISKCON it's like the unseen ashram, the invisible ashram. No one has seen a vanaprastha. We see sannyasis, we see brahmacharis, we see lots of grahastas, but we rarely see vanaprasthas. When Prabhupada got started, most of the devotees were brahmacharis, then grahastas. There weren't so many old people. Now there's lots of old people. And now we need to chalk out our program or chart out our course in vanaprastha life. It's not just a matter of having to start from scratch and invent it and figure out. There are clear directions from Srila Prabhupada, from his books, from Shastra, about the engagements of vanaprastha life and how to live as a vanaprastha. In the session that no one here attended, I went through a checklist of various things that one can do in no particular order to move into vanaprastha life, so that it starts to become something tangible rather than, yeah, I guess I should become a vanaprastha sometime. I don't know what that means exactly. But there are very definite things that we can do in order to move in that direction. There are basically, Prabhupada doesn't say this, but I gather it from his books, 6 systems of activities that one might, 6 modes of vanaprastha life one might take. Really 3, but multiplied by 2, because each one could be done with or without husband and wife being together. One is to live in a holy place, to retire to Vrindavan, to Mayapur, to some such holy place, and there be engaged in spiritual activities. And I know quite a number of devotees who've done exactly that. They've moved to Mayapur, Vrindavan, and they've been engaged in bhajan and service. Some of them have passed away, some of them are still there serving. Some with their wives, some separated. That's one system. Another system is traveling to holy places. This is Vidura, when he left Hastinapur, traveled to all the holy places, and he met Maitreya and Uddhava. So that's another system. There are so many holy places, especially in India, and one can travel from place to place. Husband and wife together can travel, or husband alone can travel. And one becomes purified by visiting so many temples of the Lord and meeting devotees of the Lord. And a third system is coming and going. We go out, we travel, or we visit holy places, or we stay in a holy place. Then we come back and we see how things are going, touch base, make a few corrections or adjustments, and we go out again. And then we come back again. 3 months, 6 months, and go out again, come back again. And then Prabhupada said, one day we just don't come back. These are basic patterns of vanaprastha life. And I can say more about them. They involve, all of them, a change of consciousness. Same child, under the illusion that a corner makes a difference. Different child, okay. Out. Thank you. I have a lot more to say, but maybe I'll just pause at this point and see if you have any thoughts or questions. Maybe that'll set a direction for me, or maybe I'll just at least address some thoughts that you might have. Are there any questions? Yes. Do we have a second microphone? Okay, there's one there, and then you can start there since you're there, and we'll come back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for enlightening conversation. Maharaj, my question was, you mentioned that...
I think if you hold the microphone very close, up front for everyone, I have a 35% hearing loss, so...
Maharaj, okay.
Good.
Okay. Maharaj, in Bhagavatam we constantly read, and Prabhupada repeats this many times, that one should take vanaprastha at 50 years of age. And with advancing Kali Yuga and the complications of the grihastha life and shedding of responsibilities, how should we take that 50 years of age?
How do we take this instruction
Yes.
of accepting vanaprastha life at 50, given all the complications and responsibilities?
Yes, sometimes you might have responsibilities that are not fulfilled.
We have responsibilities, we have unmarried daughters, we have debts still unpaid, and so many things. So how do we manage that? There are two answers I can give. One is that we should be thinking about vanaprastha life in our grihastha life from early on, so that I'm not sort of taken by surprise or suddenly wanting to do something that I'm not well situated to do because I didn't plan for it. And even ordinary retirement for the materialists, they plan for their retirement, don't they? They don't just say, well, I'm 60, I think I'd like to retire. Well, I don't have any money, I don't have any plan. I don't know, they've planned for this for decades. They've planned for this for decades. Who's going to take over the business? They've thought about it. So similarly, we should be thinking about it from early on, so that when the time comes, we know where we're going. We have a plan, and now we can start executing. And we don't do things that are going to make the plan difficult, like getting remarried at 45, for example, or having a child at the age of 40. That's not going to help us detach ourselves from family life on time. If I know from the beginning that I'm going to retire from family life, then that sort of gives me a calendar, gives me a schedule, have children early and build everything up, do everything, and be ready to head out the door in 25 years. That's the first answer. Be prepared. Boy Scout motto. The second answer is that when Bhagavatam says, or when Prabhupada quotes Panchashortam Vanam Vrajet, it's an order. It's an imperative. It's something we have to do. How do we do it? By hook or by crook. It's a duty. There's certain things I have to do. All right, I adjust whatever I have to adjust, and I do it. Prabhupada gave the example that say at 5 o'clock, our business closes, it closes. It's not that we say, well, if I stayed open another 2 hours, I might get some more customers, or this or that. 5 o'clock, the business closes, that's all. The clock hits 5 and the doors close. So we should think the same way about family life. At a certain when the time comes, it's time to shut down. There's always going to be loose ends. Rarely do we find that everything just like neatly folds up and all you have to do is tie the last ribbon and it all falls into place. There's always going to be unfinished business. There's always going to be loose ends. There's always going to be something that's not quite what I expected, not quite tacked down. All right, but I have to go. Death is going to work that way. Death isn't going to say, well, his youngest daughter doesn't have a husband yet, so I have to give him another 5 or 10 years. No. So retirement is in one sense voluntary. We're not being forcibly retired by death, but we're being, what should we say, obliged by the Vedic injunctions. The Vedic injunctions say, you have to do this. And when I have to do something, I do it. Whatever it is, I make the adjustments, I do the things I have to do. And that would be my answer. Now, how you do that will differ from case to case, and it may not all happen exactly on the stroke of the clock. But I take it seriously that this is my business and I have to do it. A third answer is that I also have my vanaprastha checklist, which includes things that you can do even before you formally accept the vanaprastha ashram, or before you take the major step of moving out. There are meanwhile things that you can do that move us in the direction of vanaprastha life. Let me mention the headline item, of course. In vanaprastha life, there's no sex. In brahmachari life, there's no sex. We can't say, well, he's a brahmachari, he only has sex once every 3 months. No. Brahmachari life means no sex. Sannyas life means no sex. Vanaprastha life means no sex. So if one is serious, that doesn't cost us any extra money. There's no one who can say, well, no, I still have to have sex because of X, Y, Z. No, it's not required. It's rather, what's the word? Untoward in our old age to be still having sex. It's not in accordance with the Vedic principles. So that's sort of a headline item for vanaprastha life. There is no vanaprastha life if I'm having sex. So that's, and also, in old age, sex isn't all that much fun anyway. It's not what it used to be. So, and it's the main anchor to material existence. So ideally, we should have given up sex before now. But if we haven't, then now that our vanaprastha life is in the picture, we want to become vanaprasthas, or right now we're going to become vanaprasthas, or we should become vanaprasthas. So headline item is no sex. Another item, I'm getting to my checklist a little bit here. But unnecessary necessities, we can give up. In householder life, we accumulate things that we don't need. We have, I don't know how I got this Netflix subscription, but somehow or other I have it. Or so many things that are not related to television. My subscription to Star TV or what have you. It's not necessary for human life. There's no one who can say, well, yeah, but it's complicated. You see, I have to have television because I have to watch it because. So these are just a few of things that, sort of we may, what's the word, drift into or not drift out of in householder life. And now when we're getting serious about detachment, about ending up our life in Krishna consciousness, ending up our life so that we're in Krishna consciousness, we can give up a lot of these things. Maybe as a householder I had some sort of, didn't seem like it was such a big deal, but now let me get serious, because vanaprastha life means, why do I go to the forest? For austerity. So we're not expected in this age to wear tree bark and matted hair and let our fingernails grow 6 inches long and all of that. But I can give up my Star TV subscription. That's not such a heavy austerity. And there are lots of other things that fall in similar categories. Does that answer your question? Okay. There's one here. Or you can, anyway, let you figure out where it's going to go. Yeah, and then over here, because you've been waiting for a while.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for that. Is there element of permission required?
Oh, closer.
So, is there an element of permission required to enter vanaprastha, either from your partner or from Guru?
Oh, our acoustics are not good. Could you tell me?
Is there an element of permission required in order to enter?
Is there permission to enter the vanaprastha life? Absolutely not. This is one of the great features of vanaprastha life. The GBC hasn't looked at it yet. There are no committees, there are no rules, there are no forms to fill out, no nothing. So get in while the getting's good.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. That was one part of my question, because I've seen there are clearly defined rules and dress codes and behavioral etiquettes for brahmacharis or for sannyasis. Even for grahastha there is a marriage samskar, but for vanaprastha that doesn't seem to be any formality. So if I decide to be a vanaprastha, do I just shout in the temple, I'm going into vanaprastha life, and what's expected of me? Is there a dress code? I've seen some vanaprastha wear saffron, some not.
Okay, dress code, formalities, externals. I decide to become a vanaprastha. What do I do in terms of those external signs? Let's come to, first of all, there's no ceremony that needs to be performed. There's no fire that you have to light or formality that one has to observe. You might wish to do so. I've done one actually ceremony for a couple that wanted to formally accept vanaprastha ashram. Just to create an impression, samskar means creating an impression that yes, this is now what we're doing. There's no Vedic injunction for it. There's nothing in Hari Bhakti Vilas that I know of. But if you can do a yagya to bless someone's new car, you can do a yagya for entering the vanaprastha ashram. There's no such thing as a vanaprastha guru or anything like that. But you might just observe a formal ceremony. Okay, this is now what we're doing. traditionally one may change one's name. The name of the title for grahasta is dasadhikari, and for the vanaprasthas, dasvanachari, or those who are connected with Mayapur, either physically or mentally, Dscourse vanachari, these names. And there's no rule again, you can just do it. You can just change your name. As far as dress, if husband and wife are together, then saffron is not considered appropriate. Only if the wife has expired or is, totally out of the picture. Prabhupada wore white as a vanaprastha. I've been told that pale yellow is a color that people performing following a vow or performing a yajna might wear. So vanaprastha might wear a kind of pale yellow. Or if the wife has expired, then saffron. And as I mentioned, Prabhupada wore white. Does that cover your externals?
How does the vanaprastha behave as how do other ashrams? Can I invite a vanaprastha to my home and can I offer
how do we recognize a vanaprastha? How do we... therefore, there's something to be said for yajna. There's something to be said for changing our name. There's something to be said for adopting a different dress, certainly a simpler dress, and perhaps a very plain dress, and it might be, again, like a pale yellow or something of that nature. To say to the world, okay, now it's vanaprastha. And then it's by our activities. It's by our activities and our mentality. It's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, vanaprastha is not involved in social engagements. This is typically what we do in retirement. We go from birthday to birthday, from this one's graduation and this one's engagement and this one's marriage and this one's this, all different, my cousins and my this and that. Not the business of the vanaprasthas. Because this is all in relation to the body. And I'm not this body. And it's a waste of my life. This engagement, this marriage, this graduation, is that my life? The real thing is to be going closer to Krishna. So the Bhagavatam is quite clear about this. This is not our business. And of course, then, everyone's offended, but they come to know that no, he's accepted vanaprastha life. He doesn't do these things anymore. And you might cut an exception for some, extremely close relationship or obligation. But, as a principle, no, it's just not what I do anymore. I've become a vanaprastha. And people get to know that. And then I can turn toward the other activities. Now I've retired from my work. I don't go into work anymore. And that might be phased out. I have one godbrother, Shubhavilas Prabhu, in Canada, and used to stop by his house. And one time he told me that now I'm he'd started a very good business, he said, but now I'm handing it over to my children. So the next time he was only going in like 3 days a week, and the kids were taking it over. The next time he was only going in 1 day a week. Next time he wasn't going in. So it may not be all in 1 day, but phasing it out, handing it over. And then you're not there anymore. And where are you? You're at preaching engagements, you're at doing seva in the temple, you're engaged in the spiritual activities, and people get to see, well, he's a different man. He's not a pharmacist or an actuary or whatever it might be. Now he's doing bhajan, basically. He's doing bhajan, he's doing prachar. So by your activities, they get to see, yes, he's changed. Shamananda is here. His father, Swami Jyoti Prabhu, he's adopted this mode of life. He's spending 3 days, he's living in London, but he's spending 3 days a week, 3-4 days a week preaching in Leicester. Then he comes back, comes back, and when he's here, he's mostly at the manor. So he's adopted vanaprastha ashram. Sometimes he comes, when I travel, he comes and spends some time with me. So he's not doing business anymore, he's not just staying at home. He's very busy. His wife is busy serving London Ishwar on one side and Radha Gokul on the other side. So everybody can see they're not in just family engagements anymore. They're seriously engaged in bhajan and prachar. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, but Nazdik. Yes.
Prabhuji, question I have is that some of us, or rather most of us, have come here from a foreign land.
Some of us
have come from the overseas, from the foreign land.
Have come from?
Abroad.
Overseas, yes.
And we come with a certain upbringing and values. And we have come here from a foreign land.
Yes.
Our children are growing up here.
Yes.
And now we have come here with a set of values, upbringing. Now our children are growing up here and are exposed naturally to different values. Now we have third generation grandchildren.
I'll need your help, but go, you're listening, right? Okay, go ahead.
And our grandchildren are growing up now here. So as grandparents, what roles should we play with them and how should we sort of...
Okay, you've come from overseas, your children have grown up here, and the rest?
Now the grandchildren are
No, he's
up.
going to help me out because women's voices are higher and they're harder to hear for those who have poor hearing.
Many of us have come from overseas with a different set of cultures.
Yes.
So the first generation had different set, the second generation has a different, and the third one who are born here have a completely different set. So the question is, how do we as grandparents relate to our grandchildren? Yes. How do we nurture the grandchildren?
How do we nurture the grandchildren? How do we relate to them? That we'll have to see individually. As for the men particularly, we don't. We're done. It's over. You know, we did that for 25 years. We looked to our children, we gave them whatever we thought was best for their education, for their culture. Possible we got them settled and so on. And now we're done. It's not that, you know, when I'm in my 60s and 70s and 80s, I have to be meddling in the affairs of my grandchildren or my children and keeping them on course. Chances are that if they grew up in this country, they're not that receptive to this sort of greater involvement that there would have been in India and in an extended family. So they're not all that eager to have us. That's one thing. And on the other side, not my business. Not my business. That's only one little family. But I'm not this body, and so it's not my family. My family is larger. Srila Prabhupada left his little family and started a worldwide family. So we may not all do that, but we can all do something to extend our scope beyond, 2 or 4 or 6 people. This is radical. The vanaprastha ashram is not your typical British retirement, where, no, it's not. Or even your typical Indian retirement nowadays. It's not. It's serious business that I get free from these things, worrying about my children and my grandchildren and nourishing them. And there's a section in Srimad Bhagavatam where Vidura has enlightened Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra, after Kurukshetra, was living like a dog in the house of the Pandavas, thinking I'm the royal uncle of the Pandavas, and Yudhisthira Maharaj was treating him and Gandhari with great respect. So he was, having conspired against the Pandavas for years and years, now he was living at their mercy in their palace. And Vidura said, "You're living just like a dog. You should get out." And so Dhritarashtra took that advice, and just in the middle of the night, he left. And Gandhari followed him, and they went off to the forest, toward the Himalayas, if I remember. And Yudhisthira Maharaj got up the next morning and went to pay respects to his elderly uncle and aunt, and they weren't there. And so Yudhisthira went to Sanjay. Sanjay, where's my elderly uncle and aunt? Have I done something to offend them? What's happened? And Sanjay said, they've cheated me also. They didn't tell me anything, they've just gone. Then, what to do? Yudhisthira Maharaj, just at that time, Narad came. And Narad told Yudhisthira Maharaj that they've gone off to the forest, and in X number of days, 5 days, whatever, from now, Dhritarashtra will burn himself up in a self-created fire, and Gandhari will join him. And you're thinking about, you're thinking of yourself as the maintainer of your uncle and aunt. You're thinking you have to go do something for them. No. You can't do anything anyway. Time is acting, time is in motion. Even if you try to do something, they'll expire before you reach. So don't think that they're dependent on you. Don't think they're dependent on you. So this is part of the spirit of the vanaprastha ashram. I did everything I was supposed to do, or as much as I could. Now I go on to my next business. The ladies may stay at home with their grown sons, if that's possible and congenial, or they may also go traveling to holy places or go live in Vrindavan or such a place. But it's not that I have to, my business is somehow to nurture my family members. Or, alternatively, if I do live with my family members, I'm speaking to the ladies now because the men should be moving on. But in their old age, if the women are living with their grown sons, husband has died or taken sannyas or gone off traveling as a vanaprastha, then their business is bhajan. And by bhajan, the woman sets the example for the family. Still, I'm sure those who've come over from the old country, you must have aunts who are living at home, but their real business is bhajan, right? They're living at home, but their business is not social engagements and chit-chat and reading the newspapers and watching television. Those who are serious, they're worshipping the deity, they're reading Shastra, they're doing bhajan, they're chanting Harinam. So this is the business of the retired women. Serious devotional service. And then they become like the beacon light for the family, that this is our real business. All right, you're doing your business, you're changing the diapers, and you're doing all of that, nappies, and doing all of that stuff. But eventually you're going to have to become detached and think about going back to Godhead. Yes, if you would check your cell phones, please, and see that your cell phone is in silent mode. Is that okay, Madhuri? Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm deeply inspired by the sannyasis and the brahmachari, the people who've taken renounced order of life in this movement. And being a woman, I can't seem to be allowed to do that. And I understand there are certain injunctions in the Vedas that it's better for ladies to get married, which I acknowledge that I don't know better myself than the scriptures. So, however, my confusion is that shouldn't we also, even though you're a woman, to strive to be on that platform internally, at least, to be detached?
Yeah. You admire the sannyasis and those who are on the path of detachment, but it doesn't seem to be the approved career path for the ladies. But still you'd like to do something serious like that.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? I can give a few answers. One is that for the younger ladies of your age, Srila Prabhupada was very enthusiastic about seeing them engaged in preaching and temple activities. Some of our ladies of, heroic reputations have distributed so many books and brought so many people to Krishna consciousness by going out every day and spreading the glories of Krishna. And Prabhupada very much approved of that. It wasn't just for the men, that the men can preach and the women have to stay home and make garlands. The garland making is fine, but those who have inspiration and would like to preach, that engagement is all open for you. Another answer is that the woman may be in a detached spirit in any stage of her life. If she marries, it doesn't mean she has to be, all right, now I'm married, so it's sense gratification for the next 25 years, and then we come back to Krishna consciousness. Women can be very serious in devotional service, which is the essence of detachment, attachment to Krishna, and not very attached to, expanding the material life. A woman is an inspiration for the man, so the women often are inspiring. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a this? Wouldn't it be nice if we bought a that? This car is so old, and so on. But the wife can inspire the husband in Krishna consciousness, in reading and chanting and preaching and serving the deity in so many Krishna conscious activities. So that's also possible. A woman may not marry, but that's usually exceptional, but it's also sometimes seen. And in vanaprastha life, the women are as serious as the men. They dedicate themselves to serious bhajan, serious hearing, chanting, serving. Is that okay? I'm not managing the microphone. Okay, there it is.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a wonderful session. I have a slightly multi-tiered question. Traditionally, vanaprastha means to go into the forest. The detachment element is so that we can focus 100% on our sadhana.
I'm having a problem.
Traditionally...
You're going to repeat it for me? Okay.
So
I don't know why, it's just the acoustics, I think, plus it couldn't be my ears, it has to be the acoustics. Go ahead.
So the traditional Vedic model is to go into the forest, detach oneself from material attachments so that we can 100% focus on our sadhana. The
traditional model is that the vanaprasthas go off to the forest and practice sadhana and so on, yes.
Now, do our previous varnas carry on in terms of how we practice our sadhana in vanaprastha, the type of service we do?
Do our previous varnas, our previous occupations, carry on in the vanaprastha stage? I've never thought about that question. We do see that the Kshatriyas, the kings, would go off to the forest. The Brahmins, of course, would go off to the forest. And Varna means occupation. So I'm not going to be a farmer or an administrator or a this or a that. My occupation is finished. I'm retiring from whatever my occupation was. Now, it may be that on account of my previous occupation, I find that this or that way of life is more congenial in vanaprastha life. The Brahminically inclined people may find, very simple life easier to do. Those who had greater administrative responsibilities, for example, might look for something more active. But the basic principle is the same. I don't know I haven't heard anything about vanaprastha. The Brahmins retire this way, Kshatriyas retire this way, Vaishyas retire that way.
So the question was more to do with, in Srila Prabhupada's mood, we tend not to become introspective in our development of sadhana, but we are more geared to preaching in our movement. So when one takes into vanaprastha, do we preach in the mood of what we've learned previously, or do we separate ourselves completely from our previous skill sets in order to develop our sadhana?
In vanaprastha life, in Krishna consciousness in ISKCON, we tend to be less geared toward the introspective way and more geared toward preaching. And would we, in vanaprastha life, would this similar sort of division be reflected, or would we take along our previous skill set and so on?
For the service, because we still are going to be serving in some sort.
We still might be serving. Okay. First of all, we're meant to be introspective. I don't think that ISKCON is in principle or should be in principle anti-introspective. We're meant to read the books, to think about them, to discuss them, and not with just administration or preaching for the purpose of preaching. I read the books only so I can preach. The books are meant for me. So we're meant to be introspective. In brahmachari life, in grihastha life, in every stage of life, we're meant to be introspective, and if we're missing that, then we're missing something valuable. Connected to that is, and at the same time, Prabhupada certainly emphasized preaching. And he didn't give a lot of credit to just sitting around being introspective all the time, doing lots and lots of bhajan and not preaching. At a certain stage, that may be appropriate, but Prabhupada, as you've noted, gave so much importance to preaching. So it's not that the vanaprasthas can't preach. I gave the example of Swami Jyoti Prabhu. That's what he's doing. He's traveling around and preaching. We hear that the vanaprastha life is midway between grahastha and sannyas. Sannyas is so much about preaching. So vanaprastha life. And Prabhupada as a vanaprastha was going to Jhansi, he was preaching. So preaching is certainly not off the agenda. Very much on the agenda for the vanaprasthas. Another thing I can say is that in vanaprastha life, our skill set may become quite valuable, because as typically what we do is, now that I'm at the peak of my experience, now that I have 40 years in finance or in administration or so on, I take a position of importance, responsibility in ISKCON and hold on to it till they move me into the ICU. But really those things are to be moved over to the younger generation. And my job becomes to advise and guide. My job becomes to advise and guide the younger people what to do. And then instead of being an old fossil who's blocking progress, I become appreciated as an actual friend and as an instrument for progress, because I'm helping the young people move forward. So the vanaprasthas have a lifetime of experience, they have so many skills, and they can guide. Even in family life, you've all been through so many years of family life, you know the ins and outs of it, the politics of it, the constraints of it, what works, what doesn't, and you can advise the grahastas. They come to me for advice, my goodness. I know more about the anatomy of porcupines than I know about family life and how to manage it. So, but they can come to the vanaprasthas, and the vanaprasthas can give them valuable advice about how to live in practically and spiritually in family life. The vanaprastha people can serve in the temples in so many ways. If you have experience in accounts, if you have experience in finance, if you have experience in construction, if you have experience in anything, you can provide advice or even hands-on service for the temple. The ladies also. You see, in the Christian world, so many of a lot of the church work is done by the older ladies, isn't it? They, their husbands have expired or whatever it is, and the ladies are doing service for the church. So the older men, older ladies can serve the temple, serve the movement. That's also within the scope of vanaprastha life. Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. If I can just add one more question to that, Maharaj. So, a vanaprastha, once entered into it, can we complete our journey in this ashram, or should we still be looking at sannyas at the end of it?
Can we finish our journey in this vanaprastha ashram, or should we still be looking to sannyas? That's an individual question. My approach has been to say, let's get on with it and get into the vanaprastha ashram. Let's not talk about sannyas today. because there's not a whole lot of people, lining up for dandas. But let's get on with the vanaprastha ashram. It's not that hard. It's not that radical. It doesn't have to involve, terrible renunciation. It's fairly easy. We just need to see step by step how we can do that and make it practical. So my focus, my emphasis these days has been on the vanaprastha ashram. Now that said, ideally we would move on to sannyas. Ideally we would move on to sannyas. One can stay in vanaprastha life, or one can move on to sannyas, depending on... The idea is supposed to be that as a vanaprastha one becomes more and more accustomed to detachment, more and more fixed in depending on Krishna and being detached from family affairs. Then finally he takes sannyas. But if he doesn't, at least he's in the vanaprastha stage, which is quite good. So much better than just staying at home bouncing our grandchildren on our knees. Is that okay?
So we have time for 2 more questions. Please keep your hands up if they're really juicy. Okay, over there. Anyone else? This side?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you. I just wanted to ask, my husband is not Krishna conscious and he likes
Your husband?
He is not into Krishna consciousness.
He's not in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, he likes to watch cricket and he likes to go out
Mostly
for...
likes to?
Cricket, yeah. But I don't like to do those kind of activities, so is that okay for me to continue what I'm doing towards Krishna consciousness, or am I going off my duty
No, you're
towards
good.
the husband?
The husband. In old age, my business is bhajan, Krishna bhajan, Krishna seva, serving the deities, chanting Hare Krishna, reading the books, doing Krishna conscious activities. My husband may be doing whatever he's doing, cricket or soccer or in America baseball or whatever it is. But all right, he's providing, I have a place, I have some security. So let me use that for serving Krishna. I don't have to make an abrupt change. If you're able, you can spend more time in the temple for temple seva and association of devotees there, or you can serve at home. You may have your deities there, you may have your program there, and you may have opportunities for sangha with devotees in different ways. Just be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. That's good. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the session. My question is is it required or is it right to have a financial security?
And you try to have family security?
Financial security in vanaprastha ashram. Because while we are a grahastha, we do investment in certain property or...
While we're in the grahastha ashram, we do certain investments.
Yeah, and some schemes like pension
So
plan.
what do we do so that we have financial security in the vanaprastha ashram? Answer 1, vanaprastha ashram is not about financial security. When Dhritarashtra went to the forest, he didn't check out the financial stability of the forest, of life in the forest. Vanaprastha means to know that Krishna will maintain me, Krishna will take care of me. I can go to the forest. What is the forest? It's not a place where my bank has a branch. A lot of branches in the forest, but not that kind. So that was one answer, that not that I wait to make sure that everything's financially secure so that I can go. I have to develop the confidence that I can go. Krishna will be there. And if I take it step by step, I'll see that that's true. That's one answer. The financial security side is more for the wife. The husband can try to make sure that the wife has a stable situation. And for that, he can prudently invest and so on. I recommend to everyone there's some seminars on financial planning for devotees. One is given by Ananda Vrindavan of Bombay. Was, until his retirement, a top man in the Bombay Stock Exchange, very, very top. And he's expert in financial affairs. He's done a seminar on financial planning for devotees. I recommend that for all the young grahastas especially. They can take most advantage of it, or older grahastas also. Those who know Hindi. It's sort of mixed Hindi and English, I think. Maybe more Hindi than English, I'm not quite sure. You can find it on YouTube. Anand Vrindavan. A wonderful devotee, by the way, very advanced in Krishna consciousness and sharp in these practical affairs. There's also a similar seminar done by Vamsidhari Gopal in America. It's also Indian background devotee, and also quite informative on financial planning. So often grahastas are just working and working and working and working and not getting ahead, not because they're not making enough money, but because they don't know how to manage it, don't know how to manage their finances. And even those who do, even the sannyasis can benefit. I have a little money that I'm keeping for devotional service. I moved it from a bank where I was making 0.03 something % to an online bank where I'm getting 4%. So that was advice from Vamsidhari Gopal, how to do that. So even the sannyasis have saved some money. But the grahastas, you'll find a lot, really valuable, and I recommend it to all my grahasta disciples and to grahastas generally. You can take advantage of that, so that when you do retire, you may have something set aside for, especially the security of your wife. But we don't need to have an annuity in vanaprastha life, money coming over, being sent over from England to Vrindavan for me every month. Anyway, we can get into the details of that, but in the beginning we may have, like Raghunath Das Goswami. His father and uncle were sending him some money every month. And he was, because he's gone to Puri, he's living, how is he living? So Raghunath was accepting the money, and he was using it to hold feasts for Mahaprabhu's devotees. But then he thought that I'm living at the expense of my uncle and my father as a sadhu here in Puri. So then he was just begging, standing outside of the lion gate at the temple and accepting alms. that was better, but then he gave that up. He thought, I'm standing here just like a prostitute, you know. He hasn't given me any money, but maybe the next person will give me some money. Oh, well, he didn't give me anything, but maybe that person. So then finally he was just living by accepting grains that were rejected from down the drain in the Jagannath temple, Mahaprasadam. So it was a gradual process of greater detachment, greater detachment, greater detachment. It's mentioned that there are different stages of vanaprastha life. In the first stage, one lives like on the edge of the village and the local villagers provide something. Next stage, he's farther away, farther away. So one gets the idea that, all right, I'm okay, and well, I'm still okay. And then he goes further out, and then he can go all over the world. And Prabhupada was all over the world and not worrying about how will I live. Okay?
Hare
Good
Krishna
question.
Maharaj. In material society, we see over 55 living or over 60 living.
In material society, we see people over 55 and over 60.
Living accommodations.
Accommodations for them, yes.
So would GBC or the management support any projects like a community center and few apartments close by with that of setting for the devotees?
Would there be arrangements for like elderly community apartments for devotees? There could be. My guess is that it will take a low priority in ISKCON, that we won't see it happening quickly. Another thing is that our goal is in vanaprastha life is not to create a sort of mirror image of retirement as it is in the outside world, nor a sort of ongoing perpetuation of family life in cozy little apartments. It's meant for detachment, it's meant for getting out of home. It's meant for getting out of home. There's a quote I have, I won't look it up, but Prabhupada says basically that the vanaprastha should get out of home because it's hard to detach oneself while you're still living in your home. So the vanaprasthas are meant to get out. They're meant to visit the holy places or move to a holy place or in that way come and go, but not just to be nicely settled in a comfortable elder community where we, what's the word, sort of hobnob with other elderly people and talk about what medications we're taking and what our test results were. But I will say, this is like a chapter in my book somewhere, that it's as we develop a vanaprastha ashram, as more and more elderly people take to the path of serious Krishna conscious retirement, there'll be a greater responsibility for the grahasthas. Because that one ashram, grahastha ashram, has the responsibility for supporting the other three ashrams, the brahmacharis, the grahasthas, brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. In ISKCON, the brahmacharis are taken care of by the society, so the grahasthas don't have to worry about that. The temples take care of the brahmacharis, generally speaking. Although the gurukulas could be and should be supported by the grahasthas. And the sannyasis, we're all rich, so you don't have to worry about us. But the vanaprasthas, supporting the vanaprasthas, is an important responsibility of the grihasthas, especially the older ladies. That they become, of course, in the traditional life, the elderly ladies are taken care of by their sons. But as you've observed, the culture here is quite different. The sons may or may not take care of their elderly mothers and fathers, or may not be able to, may not have it in their minds. So the grihastha community has to take that responsibility, how to care for the elderly people, and especially the elderly ladies.
It's just like the churches are doing, supporting the community. They're doing the nurseries for the younger children, the older ladies.
Mm-hmm.
We could, just like the churches are doing.
The churches are doing.
The elderly people are supporting the primary schools and the church activities.
Yeah, I'm not expert on what the churches are doing. What ISKCON, anything that has to do with ISKCON, just don't depend on ISKCON. Just practical advice. I love ISKCON, I've grown up in ISKCON, but don't wait. Anybody who's, not yet past the age of 30, if you're expecting ISKCON to pull things together by the time you retire, you are in deep illusion, and therefore you should go to the forest. ISKCON just doesn't have the resources and the organization, and it's not that high on their priority list. By the time they get to it, your grandchildren might be ready for vanaprastha life. So really it's the grihasthas as a community who should be taking the responsibility. Some of our grihasthas may be more prosperous. Some of us have fun. We want to give in charity. It's the duty of grihasthas to give charity. And charity, as Prabhupada said, begins at home. So before we start sending money off to, wipe out hunger in Hyderabad or something, first priority is taking care of our own devotees, Vaishnav Seva. So the grihasthas can seriously organize or individually make arrangements to see to the welfare of orphans, widows, old people. These are duties of the grihasthas. Okay. And that's there in I can't say much about the church, but in every religious community, whether it's Christian or Jewish or Islamic, that's what the community does. They take care of their own members. You're eager to say something.
The lecture was very enlightening, Maharaj, and I'm of the age when I should be going to forests. And I just want to enlarge on Mataji's point. If I'm not wrong, she is a GP, and she will be financially secure when she retires. I think the anxiety for her and me is, if I live 30 miles away from ISKCON temple, I can't, I was not able to drive, I was not allowed to drive for 6 months. So then it becomes very difficult in Western society to come to the ISKCON temple. So I support Mataji on the point that there should be, ISKCON should take a lead, that the older devotees should have accommodation where they could live and they can practice ISKCON, because there would be a time when I would not be able to cook. So if I want to practice ISKCON properly, there should be, how will I get the...
Due to circumstances, it may be difficult for us to come to the temple.
Yes.
We may be living far away, what to do. And it seems like ISKCON should be providing in some way. I can give...
Not financially, sir.
No, but making arrangements.
Making arrangements so that the older devotees can be there.
Take advantage of...
And they can devote their time to temple and maybe win funds.
Yeah, good points. There are two things I can say. One thing is that Vrindavan is meant for that. Prabhupada said Vrindavan is especially for the retired people. So, of course, now Vrindavan's become crazy expensive. You know, you can live, if you want to live next to the Vrindavan temple, you can spend a fortune and, oh my goodness, and it's become crazy there. But Vrindavan, Mayapur, these places are meant for that. You know, Hertfordshire is just a more difficult environment, and what to speak of places further out. So that's the first thing, that these holy places are particularly meant for the retired people, and we could see about taking advantage of that. The other is that your point is well taken. I was just in Pune, and Radhesham Prabhu, our leader there, has been thinking about this and is sort of working on plans for doing something for the vanaprastha devotees. And it's sort of in an embryonic stage, and there are no questions about how to proceed with it. But it does make sense. Typically, for example, in temple towns or in any town, the Brahmins live near the temple, don't they? You'll see that there's just surrounding the temple, those are the places where the Brahmins live, because then they can serve the deity and so on. So it also makes sense to have living arrangements near the temple so that the vanaprasthas can come and serve in the temple, and that's good for the temple and good for the vanaprasthas. So that is sensible, and the ISKCON, or again Grahastha community, can be thinking of how to do that, just as we think about how to have schools for the children, or we think about how to have brahmacharya ashrams. So we can think about that for the vanaprasthas. Yes, good point. Thank you. And it looks like we're done.
So it's come time to finish today's session, but in gratitude of Maharaj, we'd like to just all give a big round of applause for his wonderful insights. This morning, Maharaj addressed us in the temple room in the morning class, and there was a question about how do we handle situations where we're preaching to people who are, you know, it's not so much about Buddhist philosophy, but it's more about crystals and auras. And Maharaj said, get them to chant Hare Krishna, eat prasad, and then everything will become crystal clear. And I think today he's given us hope that this vanaprastha ashram can become crystal clear. There's some sort of boundary and definition. It's not this 50 shades of grey. So thank you so much, Maharaj, for allowing us to enter that space, and we look forward to your book, is it Vanaprastha Adventure or Varnashram?
The Vanaprastha Adventure.
Wonderful. And when can we expect that, Maharaj?
Coming soon to a theater near you.
But no going to theatres otherwise, okay? Just for this one. So Maharaj has been instrumental in many of the different revolutions within ISKCON, and we're very excited, even as a younger person, to see how this manifests, and hopefully many of you can also ask questions to Maharaj. Maharaj will
just see what illusion he's in. He still thinks he's a younger person.
Maharaj can see my side, so you can see the grey hairs from the Manu Samhita, so I have to go to the forest. He always tells me to shave as well, so yeah. Okay, moving on. Maharaj will, after the program, he'll be sitting at the back corner there, to where, if you'd like, you can pick up one of his books, Vanity Karma. It's selling for £10, and that donation would help him continue his work.
While you're waiting for the next book, we at least have this one.
And so that's at the back. In terms of School of Bhakti, they have many programs. The next one is on Friday the 14th, which is the coming Friday. That's with Malati Prabhu, who is one of the pioneers who helped start up Krishna consciousness here in the UK. And she's a perfect example of a female devotee who is serving whilst being in the vanaprastha ashram. She'll be talking about her journey to Krishna consciousness and how we can keep Srila Prabhupada at the heart of it. So if you'd like to sign up, then please visit the table there. There's also a QR code here on the posters there and at the back. You can scan that. And if you don't know what that means, then just speak to the people at the back table. They'll explain that. Let's see if there's anything else. Yes, so Maharaj spoke that, one of the ways that we can enter the Vanaprastha ashram is by associating with other people that are aspiring or already in that ashram. And so Krishna Purnamataji and her team have already organized such a sangha which meet monthly, every month. And so that's a nice time to come and spend time with people, not necessarily about the medical results, but talking about how we can take our next step in Krishna consciousness and detach from the duties that we previously held. So if you're interested in finding out more information about that, Sachirani Mataji, if you could just stand up. So everyone stare at Sachirani Mataji, so she goes really embarrassed. So Sachirani Mataji is head of volunteering here at the Manor, so please speak to her. She'll be at the back, maybe by the drinks table, so you can go and speak to her and give her your details so that you're invited to those monthly sanghas. And personally, I think this has been a fantastic. We thank School of Bhakti, Asha, Mataji, Mayuri, Mataji, and their team for organizing this event, and we hope you've had an enjoyable evening. So Maharaj will go to the back, and again, a round of applause to Maharaj for his time today. And thank you for being a wonderful audience. Let us offer our respects to one another in our traditional manner. Panchakalpa tarubhasya kripa sindhubhya evacha patita nam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.